colleague and good friend, Cher Thomas, who is a registered dental hygienist and also a kidney transplant recipient. After her kidneys failed due to ANCA positive vasculitis in 1999, her brother became her kidney donor. Cher utilizes her experience with peritoneal dialysis, organ transplantation to explore the relationship between oral and renal health. And she also uses that experience to be an excellent patient outreach coordinator here for RSN. And she lives in Galveston, Texas, just a stone's throw from me.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say about
Thank you, Suzette. And I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for coming today. Setting some time aside on Sunday to learn more about coping. And I'd also like to thank my panelists. The panelists that I chose today all have a relationship with Renal Support Network's um, monthly support groups. We have them on the second Tuesday and the third and the fourth Sunday of every month, and they are all uh, either a co-moderator or someone who regularly attends, someone who is always up for sharing information, insight, experience, and just helping patients come to terms or accept or cope their journey in kidney disease. So the people that I've invited today, and they will be in this order, is going to be Kristen Rice. Kristen is a lifelong kidney patient. Kristen is, she did PD. She's had a transplant newly. She's just, I think, crossed her 7 months transplant anniversary. And she has that transplant, but she's having some complications. Tracy, Tracy Reynolds, is somebody who is a little bit newer compared to the rest of the panel, newer to dialysis. She's been on it a bit now, but she has a couple of genetic disorders she recently found out about, and she's doing in-center hemodialysis. She has a very tight-knit family, and you're going to hear more about that from her. Then we have Shane. And Shane's experience with kidney disease is a little bit, it's not just out there in left field, but it's a little untraditional because he kind of stumbled into kidney disease, not with an illness. And really, what he's done with his kidney disease and how it affected the trajectory of his life is so important. And then Shane is also here to give us the male perspective of coping. Yay, Shane. And lastly, we have Julie. Julie is my veteran of kidney disease. Julie has had her first transplant for a very long time. It failed. She's had two transplants now and two episodes of cancer. So she is, whenever you look up the word resilience in the dictionary, you would see Julie. So thank you to my panelists for being here. We're going to start with Kristen first. And I'm going to ask some questions that are different, some that are the same, but each panelist you'll see has a different message, a different experience. And so here we go. So, Kristen, you're going to be first. And as I said, Kristen is a co-moderator for Renal Support Network's support groups. And she is my right-hand person. If I need assistance with something, she is there. And actually, it's of no surprise that professionally, Kristen is a professional change manager. She's very, very organized. And so that is why I can really count on her. She's married and she has a daughter, Stephanie, who is a great source of joy in her life. And so that is something that definitely keeps her going. Kristen, could you just briefly share with us your lifelong journey with kidney disease and we'll talk about the obstacles that you've come across, but if you'll start with the your experience, then we'll move on.
Sure. Thanks, Cher. Happy to be here. Happy to be asked to be a panelist, and always happy to be Cher's, wing woman. So, I am one of those people who are involved with RSN who is a lifer in the kidney community. I was diagnosed with kidney disease when I was 4. I had a seizure at 4. Once they did the root cause analysis, it turned out to be kidney disease. So I have lived with this condition for 45 of my 51 years. So I don't know anything different. And for the majority of my life, managing and coping with kidney disease wasn't hard. I grew up as a normal, normal teenager, normal child, played sports, went away to college, did all the things that a young person growing up with or without kidney disease typically does. With some of the differences being that as a teenager, I was put on a low protein, low sodium diet. Before I went off to college, I had to have conversations with my medical team around balancing my health and taking my medications with some of the other things that come along with going to college and, being a young adult entering the world. Coming, out of the college years, getting into relationships, looking ahead at marriage and family planning, that was another time in my life for counseling and coaching and coping and strategizing around, okay, moving into this phase, what does family planning look like? What do some of these other challenges and opportunities coming up in life look like as I move into the next chapter? And for the most part, coping and managing through those early stages of kidney disease, into my 30s and really into, I would say, my early 40s was pretty manageable. It's okay, your kidney function's going down a little bit. In addition to watching the protein and your sodium, we now want you to watch potassium. Okay, we're decreasing a little bit more. We're going to start giving you iron infusions because you're anemic. Okay, things have tweaked again. Well, now you need to start watching your potassium and your phosphorus, all of which, for me, as a control freak, as somebody who had just been living with kidney disease, all very easy to do, all things I could manage, and didn't need a lot of help with managing. Then, right around the time COVID hit, maybe a year or so before, give or take, I very quickly went from stage 3 to stage 5. I blew, after being holding steady in stage 3 for a long time, I pretty much blew right through stage 4 and found myself at the magic number of 20% to qualify for the transplant list early in 2019. So that put me into my early 40s. And I spent the time, maybe mid 40s, I spent that time right before the pandemic, getting my work up for transplant, doing all the things to get on the list, and then ultimately getting on the list. So that had me at stage 5 with about 20% kidney function. And that's where the scariness, the reality of this condition, terms like dialysis, transplant, became very real. And I found myself needing more support. Fortunately, that was also around the same time RSN started offering their online support group. And I joined initially as a participant, even as a lurker, just wanting to meet other people who were going through some of the same things I was going through and trying to understand what was happening, but also trying to listen and learn from people who were further ahead in their journeys or in a different place on their journeys, and what I could gain and learn from them that would help me work through these next chapters that I was coming up against. So, got on the transplant list. 2 years after getting on the transplant list, I was having conversations as my kidney function continued to decline. I was having conversations with my medical team about planning to start dialysis and continuing to look for living donors, which I had been doing all along, waiting for a deceased donor, taking control of my health, actively looking for a living donor, and then planning with my medical team about when we were going to start dialysis. And for me, that was a milestone of my daughter was graduating high school in June 2023. And the plan was to start dialysis in the fall of 2023 after she was out of the house and moved into college. Well, you know what the universe says when you make plans, the universe laughs at you. And I found myself rather unceremoniously in acute kidney failure at the end of March 2023, having emergency thoracic surgery to drain 3.5 liters of fluid from my heart and lungs, spending a week, maybe more, in the ICU, the cardiac ICU unit, And then once they dried me out, having a PD dialysis port put in months ahead of my personal schedule. And then coming out of the hospital and having to learn how to do PD dialysis at home, going through that whole transition. And again, that was where the coping took on a different style and it became talking more to my friends at that point, showing up as RSN, showing up again as somebody who needed to listen and learn versus facilitate, and talking to my friends in the kidney community to work through that transition. So we're moving along. We're moving along. We're looking for an active living donor. One comes up last summer, about this time last year, actually. Living donors available. Great. We're getting ready for that. I'm staying home. I'm quarantining. 48 hours before I was supposed to have the surgery, the living donor gets COVID. They ultimately end up backing out of the surgery completely. And at that point, continuing to talk to my kidney friends, but now we're looking at therapy and talking to medical professionals, mental health professionals, because I'm in a full-on downward spiral over losing this kidney. So, shifting the method of help, really focusing more on my mental health than ever before, because I badly needed it. I was in a really, really tough spot having lost that transplant and, feeling completely desolate after having so much hope and having altered my life for so many weeks in advance. So work through that, working with the therapist, doing all the things. Phone rings on a random Wednesday night in December. It was literally the week before Christmas. I get a call from Hopkins on Wednesday night. I didn't pick it up the first time. I waited for a text message came in saying it was Hopkins. Well, 9 o'clock at night, you get a text and a call from Hopkins. Something's up. They had a deceased donor kidney for me out of the blue. Had my surgery the next morning, December 19th. So coming out of this now, I'm starting on the transplant piece. 4 years after, starting to look for a living donor, 2 years after doing, starting PD dialysis on a very much emergency basis. Now we've got the transplant opportunity. So coming out of that, there's some more challenges. I did not have a vanilla transplant experience. I had what's called delayed graft function, where it took a couple of weeks for the new kidney to kick in and really get used to my body and for us to warm up to each other. And that was a lot of anxiety, a lot of very tense times. I have had, now 7 months out, I've had a couple of episodes of blood in my urine, which can be scary because you're like, is this something? Is this nothing? I don't know enough about the transplant side of the house yet to know how I should be reacting to all this and how concerned I should be. And then, learning how to read a whole new set of labs and things. My donor was CMV positive, and not to give medical advice, but just to throw this out there, CMV is a virus that most people have been exposed to at some point in their life. A large number of US adults have been exposed to it. And you can receive a transplant from a donor who has been exposed to CMV but not had it. There are certain risks, though, that come when you're a recipient, especially if you have not been exposed to that virus, in that, as they start to wean you off the antivirals, that virus can potentially flare and wreak a little bit of havoc if it's not managed properly. So subsequently, over the past 7 months, there has still been some continued use of the therapist, especially early on as I was working through the physical mental healing process and, really trying to process the fact that I had been given this gift. I was literally a Christmas miracle. I got the call the week before Christmas. I was released from the hospital on Christmas Eve. And what hit me especially hard is that my donor was a young woman who was about the same age as my daughter, who died of a drug overdose. So here I am as a mom celebrating Christmas with my daughter and happy to be out of the hospital and spending time with her, when I know there's a woman who very much is likely my own age, who is grieving a child who is a year or two older than my own. And so again, getting some mental help from a professional therapist, relying on my kidney friends, relying on RSN support group to help me get through this new phase of my kidney journey, because that's what this disease is. It's not a start, it's not a stop, it's not a cure, it's a journey. And you're just dealing with something new and something different all the time. And that has basically gotten me to where I am today. I am 7 months post-transplant, and my medical team likes to say, "You're not vanilla, you're vanilla with sprinkles. It's not some weird flavor of vanilla. It's not, you're not chocolate or something else. It hasn't been an easy transplant team, but fortunately, I'm at a very experienced transplant center, and they're like, your vanilla experience with sprinkles, and just learning like when to worry, when not to worry, how concerned should I be, how not to be, and just figuring out what its life is like and how to cope in this new phase. I think the other thing that's been important for me in this new phase, especially in light of being given a deceased donor, is going back to my faith as a new form of coping right now, and really spending some time thinking about the question, what do you do when you've been on the receiving end of a miracle? And how do you cope after that? And what does life look like going forward? And is it just enough to live life as a solid human and give back through RSN and other organizations? Or do you need to be, doing more? So now, in addition, relying a little bit less on the therapist, always relying on my RSN friends and, support. And now I'm moving in another direction where I'm finding that my faith is more important to me. So that's where I'm at right now. And stick around, show up at support group, and we'll see where I'm at next couple months, next couple of years.
Super. Thank you, Kristen. So I was going to ask you about the 5 obstacles that you had in PD and transplant, but you really hit those. And so why don't we, I think the reason why I wanted to ask about obstacles, and I'll ask everybody this question, the reason why I wanted to ask it is I think in order for people to understand where you're coming from, that gives them an idea on where you're going with your coping skills. So could you give us your top 5 or 6 coping skills that you utilize? You mentioned therapy. What are other
Yeah.
things?
So
Faith?
I use, I have sought professional mental help before, absolutely no shame in that. On and off, more or less when needed. Um, Certainly RSN support group and kidney friends. Having not had kidney friends or been part of a support group before COVID started, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to expect. And now I can't imagine living with this condition without having my kidney friends and resources to help me through. It has been invaluable. And you don't know how much you're missing or how many other people are out there going through similar situations, and that you're not alone until you find your people and you find other people like you who are going through the same thing. I think there's a saying, I'm sure it's used in multiple communities for people who are dealing with chronic conditions, saying, your story is somebody else's playbook. And there are always things to be given and taken and people to learn from, no matter where you're at. So I think support group, kidney friends have been really important to me, certainly therapy. And then the other two things I would say are faith and self-care. So self-care for me, that can look like any number of different things. When I'm feeling good and I have the energy like I do now, it's hopping on the treadmill, going for a walk where it's not ridiculously humid here in the mid-Atlantic. It's, painting my nails, or maybe buying a cute outfit because I feel like looking the part, and I certainly have professional, wardrobe and things to maintain. That's important to me too. I don't want everybody at work look at me and thinking, oh, she's a kidney patient. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are people who know, but I still need to show up and look like a professional most days of the week. So, those are all different things, tactics I've used to help cope, and some of them more, some of them less, depending on where I'm at any given point in time.
Okay. I had asked you in advance that if you had a single message about coping, what is it that you would like to share? So you already hit on the kidney community. Do you remember the other one?
I do, because
Okay.
so the second point I would say is there's no one size that fits all when it comes to coping. Find what works for you, find different things that work for you, and leverage, build yourself a little coping toolkit, right? Mental health, physical health, spiritual health. Find what works for you and use the right tools at the right time to get you through what you're going through. And if there's something you still think you need that you can't find, you know, talk to people, see if they have ideas, and try and come up with something else that might help you get you through. This disease is fluid. Where you're at today is not going to be where you're at tomorrow. It's not going to be, where you're at 6 months, a year from now. So think of the things you can use and switch it up as you need to meet yourself where you're at.
Okay, super. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you for your candid thought and insight. And next, we're going to move on to Tracy. And Tracy is a twin and from a very close knit family in Georgia. And welcome, Tracy. We're glad to have you here with your beautiful smile. And you look so beautiful in yellow. Thank you for
Thank
joining us today. So,
thank you.
Tracy, would you mind just sharing us a little bit of your journey with kidney disease? Like, how were you diagnosed?
Thank you for having me on your panel. I'm enjoying this day. Just with how I got started with it.
Hmm?
I was diagnosed. Well, I went for a job at the post office, and I had to get my left kidney removed because there was a tumor in it.
Oh,
I just, but after that, went for the follow up. Everything went well. Moved down to relocated to Georgia and started seeing a nephrologist. And my kidney they were saying that in time, you're going to have to be on dialysis. And I was like, that's really not an option. I don't want to do that. I had two family members that did dialysis. Not, yeah, they did dialysis, but unfortunately, they passed from it. And I'm like, okay, being that I'm not too comfortable with being on dialysis, that's not an option. But unfortunately, the kidney started getting worse and worse and worse and started to decline. And one day I was on my way, I did my errands, and coming home, I from my car to my apartment, I was out of breath. I was winded. I had to lean up against the breezeway to catch my breath. And it was just, I'm like, okay, let me just take myself to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, I already had the fistula put in my arm. So being that it was mature, I'm thinking that I'm just going to the hospital just to get an injection to release the fluid. So that wasn't the plan. When the doctors knew that I had the fistula in, they were like, when they came back into the room, they said, "Oh, you have your fistula? Okay, you're starting dialysis." I'm like, "No, wait a minute, no, no, no." So after that, I I started dialysis in the hospital. Then I went to in center. When I got to in center, I was just nervous. It was all new to me. I was just nervous with the whole thing. And then a few weeks later, I'll say about a year, not a weeks, about a year later, I went to another support group that I'm with. They had a summit in Manhattan, and I went to their summit. And when spoke to one of the doctors there, they let me know that you need to get a genetic test. So with that, I once I came back home, and myself and my twin sister went, yay! We went to the summit, and when I got back home, I took the genetic test and came back positive that I had FSGS, also APOL1, and I'm a carrier of the Alport syndrome. I don't know much about everything, about all of them, because it's all new to me. It's all new. But I'm just taking it. I praise God every day. I didn't like going through what I don't like going through what I'm going through, but I realized that with certain things, it has brought the family closer together. My sister and my mom, we do our prayers on the days that I don't have treatment. And my oldest son, He calls me pretty much like every other day on his way to work. And I'm like, Lord, all I can do is just with this here, because I'm getting myself ready for treatment. He's going to work. I'm on the phone with my mom and my sister, and we're it's a good thing. And it's something. It's good.
That's fantastic. Family, right, is so important. And if you don't have family, you need to find friends that are family. So that's
Yes.
outstanding that you have that already built in. So I was going to ask you about family. So the next thing I wanted to ask you about was your journey to get listed for a transplant. So you're taking something new to help you get listed. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
I'm doing Ozempic.
Okay. And how is
Um,
that journey going? Are you just doing Ozempic? Or are you doing other things with it?
I'm doing Ozempic and I'm just watching what I eat. Watching what I eat. I also do exercise throughout my apartment. And when I started the Ozempic, I didn't think that it would start. I would get lose my appetite right away.
Mhm.
I took it that morning. But at evening, I had no appetite, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And I've been on it for about, I'll say a year and a half. I've lost over 60 pounds.
Wow. And
Yeah,
how much more do you have to lose before you'll qualify for your transplant center?
thank God I'm there already.
Oh, yes.
They say 213. I'm down a lot, down a lot. I'm
Okay.
down 202, and I just smile and I'm just thankful for everything. For
That's
everything.
outstanding. That's outstanding. So, what do you think are the five biggest obstacles that you've experienced in your CKD journey so far?
Well, definitely, um, I have AFib. My
Mm.
twin sister, she also has a defibrillator. It's a twin thing, I believe.
Okay.
She had it in 2010. I received mine in 2014. So, that's one of them. Also, I have SMA, which is a deterioration of the nerves. Every
Oh,
now and then I'll get cramping in my hands and my arms and my neck. It affects my walking, my speech, and get that. And then also what I'm going through right now, being on the dialysis.
right, right, absolutely, right. Your plate is full. Your plate is
Yeah,
full.
it's
So, what are the things that you use to cope? How do you get through? What keeps you motivated?
my faith. My faith is the main thing. Constantly and just thanking the Lord just for every day, just to be able to get up, to walk, to drive, do different things. I also, like I said, I do my exercises.
Mhm.
Um, I also do every now and then I'll just sit still and
Oh, that's
quiet
good.
and just breathe in and just relax. And that's it. I don't any negativity I stay away from. I dismiss it and I can't have that around me. I can't have that around me. I just stay positive and just stay focused.
Outstanding. So, Tracy, if you had one single message that you would like to share about coping, what would that be?
Can I can I give you two things?
Of course you can.
Okay. My first thing is that God is always moving. He's
Okay.
there. He's with everything that we're going through. And the second thing is that whoever's going through what I'm going through, whatever we're going through, just know that you can make it through. And you're going to make it through. Just keep a positive attitude with it. and you're going to be okay. You can always just share your story. Somebody's watching you. You'll be able to share your story with someone else and let them know that you can do this. You can get through this, and it's, again, it's all good. And I just keep smiling. And I
Hey,
love
and
you.
you have a
Love you.
beautiful smile. You have
Thank
a
you. Thank
beautiful
you.
smile
Thank you. Thank you.
and a beautiful message. And you know what? I have a feeling you're going to get that kidney bean you're looking for soon.
Thank you very much. And I will keep you updated.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you, Tracy.
You're
Okay, we're
welcome.
going to go ahead and transition now to Shane. Welcome, Shane.
Hey
And
everybody.
Shane, as I said in the introduction, Shane has a unique story because well, I'm going to let him tell that part, but Shane is also a co-moderator for the Renal Support Network support group. And Shane's experience with kidney disease helped him on a journey into his professional career. And I'm not going to steal his thunder. Shane, would you share?
Absolutely. Thank you everybody for having me here. It's great to see everybody. My journey is weird, is I am weird, right? My journey started when I was 19 years old, a healthy sophomore in college, and went to go eat with some friends of mine in a neighboring town and everything. And on the way back from eating, we were in a car accident, and where I was sitting was the passenger seat, and where the seatbelt goes across here, your spleen is right here. Well, on impact, my spleen had torn, and I was rushed to the hospital. Some things that happened along the way, the car caught on fire, and people pulled me out and everything. So really traumatic experience. Rushed me to the hospital, and while I was there, the surgeons wanted to save my spleen because it had torn on impact and it had swollen about twice its size. And after about a week being in the hospital, they were hoping things would be stable. And as life has it, my spleen ruptured and it just started spewing out. So there was some all kinds of goodness coming out of the spleen. Your spleen is one of the things that helps clean our blood in addition to the kidneys. Well, a lot of those toxins were leaching out in a ton of blood, and they rushed me to emergency surgery. While I was there, I started getting sick, started to become a little septic, but also I went into the fancy term is hypovolemic shock. That's from internally bleeding so much to where my body started shutting down. So things like my intestines and kidneys and everything started to shut down. Well, I remember going to the OR on the way emergently, and then the next thing I knew, I woke up in the ICU a couple days later, and I was on dialysis. And in college and everything, I was before I chosen my career path, I had always thought, oh, is a good idea. You know, they can make a lot of money and help people. Well, little did I know, going out to eat one night would definitely set me on a path to becoming a nurse and eventually working in transplant.
That's outstanding. So now you're helping people just like you needed help, right?
I
So
did.
when did you have your transplant?
My transplant was in January of 2015. It
Okay.
was in Houston, Texas.
And did you have a vanilla transplant, Shane?
Uh, Mine was pretty
No one has
vanilla.
a vanilla transplant.
uh, as things go, my I received a living donor from my
Okay.
best friend. He gave me a kidney.
Oh,
Throughout the process and everything, they didn't want to use my mom or a few cousins because they did a biopsy several months later after my the car incident back in 2000, and they couldn't rule out FSGS. Granted,
uh,
this was after the fact, after there was a lot of scarring and everything. So just because they didn't rule it out doesn't mean they could rule it in either.
right.
So the team was just concerned about a potential, even though it's nowhere near in the diagnoses. But they
Better
went
safe
with
than
my best
sorry,
friend.
right?
Right. They went with my best friend.
All right. Okay. Well, that is a best friend.
Yeah.
Okay, so Shane, what are the top 5 obstacles that you've faced with kidney disease?
Oh man. With kidney disease, for me being so young, that was a lot of it. Having that face of, you know, um, people looking at me and assuming I was already fine, even though from the outside I looked young and vibrant and everything. But dealing with going to dialysis or whenever my kidneys did recover, a couple months later after the car accident and everything, just that longing fatigue, also that chronic illness, going from a healthy, another one that was a huge hurdle was the why me syndrome, waking up after emergent surgery and all of a sudden they're telling me I'm going to have kidney disease for the rest of my life and I'm going to be on dialysis, going to need a transplant and everything. So that was scary. And it also, led me down a path of some depression and frustration and anger, not only just with life, but also the medical community and everything. But because of that frustration, I needed to learn more. And I set that in the path of becoming a nurse. Also eating food, it was weird to be able to eat whatever I want one day and then the next day, going in for labs and freaking out because I had to go on emergent dialysis because my aunt put some potatoes in a stuffing and my creatinine or my potassium was through the roof and had to go on emergent dialysis on my
Wow, wow.
20th birthday of all
Oh,
things. Yeah.
oh, oh,
So
that's that's bad. Yeah.
right.
It's bad.
So
Not what you look forward to at 20. No.
yeah, needless to say, my aunt didn't make that recipe anymore
All
for
right.
Thanksgiving.
Okay. Well,
But
I did mention that in the introduction that I was so glad that you were our male representative for the panel. And whenever I see you have already shared with me your coping skills,
mhm,
you know, I share a lot with you, actually,
yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
so glad that you agreed to be on the panel because there are other men here in the audience that need to hear that perspective too. So, could you share your coping skills? Because I think they rock, literally.
Uh, my first one that shares mentioning is I'm a huge metalhead, and what got me into heavy metal, in high school and everything, I would listen to some heavier stuff, and it was cool. But as after the wreck, after coming off of dialysis, dealing with the YSB, dealing with the depression and everything, I started listening to a lot of heavier music, and that music was allowed me to channel and hone in and focus what was going on. And it was a way for like me to process this emotion and to like funnel it and get it out. Like as the music got heavier, I felt better. And like to physically feel like a release and a peace of mind after listening to some really heavy music that my mom did not like at the time, if you can believe it. So it helped work through those emotions. And that also set other pathways up for me to, as I'm listening to music, like also verbalize what I was going through. Like, I'm mad. I'm frustrated. I don't like what's going on because XYZ. And so verbalizing, talking it out helped me also get all of that negativity out. Another thing that works, what I'm doing now is laughing, having those go-to movies, whether it's some slapsticks, silly humor, um, like whether it be an Adam Sandler movie or Monty Python movies or Mel Brooks movies, something just completely ridiculous that I could watch and laugh and have those endorphins released, have those big moments of disconnecting a little bit and being able to be happy and remember that I can be happy because that's a hard thing to do dealing with chronic illness because it's a part of our lives. It's everywhere. We don't get to clock out. We don't get to take a break from it. We don't get to be on call every once in a while with it. It's every day and it's every minute. And being able to laugh and disconnect and think about good things, or have or connect a good movie to a moment with a friend or something to help stretch that time out. Other things I would do is change the scenery. If I'm sitting on the couch and I'm upset and I'm down and out, I'm getting up and I'm going outside. I'm going for a walk. I'm changing the location to change my mindset. I have to get, again, releasing endorphins, using that biology that we can learn about to improve our moods and everything. And it helps me hit that reset button. Exercise, another thing, do as much as I can when I can. Obviously, when I had a dialysis permacath port coming out of my chest, I couldn't do a lot of stuff, but I could walk around the house. I could wait until it got cooler in the afternoon because I live in Texas, and we all know it's not cold here during the summer, but trying to take advantage of some of those things so I wouldn't get a line infection, but also help my mood. And also like leaning on my support system, that I have some amazing people in our lives that I'm able to talk with or be there with, or for example, my friend Joey that gave me a kidney, or my my wife, or so many other people in my life. And my bonus one is reaching out to reach in, is helping other people, because sometimes even now, whether it's volunteering with RSN or cutting my neighbor's yard who's elderly and needs help, it's those things to give back to make me feel better about myself, and to put some positivity into the world, because Lord knows there's enough negativity in the world that we need.
You got that right. I tell you, we have enough bad stuff. We have to be nice to ourselves. We have to be nice to each other, right?
Right.
All right. Very good. So Shane, if you could share a single message about coping, what would it be?
You are not alone. One of my favorite sports teams slogan is "You'll never walk alone." And the amazing thing with about kidney disease is there are so many of us here, and we all don't have the same story. We all might not look the same, different genders, whatever. We all are going through this together in some way or another. All of us have know what it's like to be on hemodialysis, having the fatigue and cramping afterwards. We've all been drained. We've all been sick and tired of being sick and tired. We all are there with each other, whether it's sitting in the dialysis chair next to you, or lamenting over, well, I really want this tomato sauce today, but I can't have it. You know, we're all there.
Yeah, yeah, we are. So, Shane, you're an incredible person, as is Tracy and Kristen. And I thank you again for, joining the panel today. And with that said, we are going to transition to Julie. Julie is what I would describe she's a kidney journey veteran. Julie she's resilient. Julie has had 2 transplants. She's had 2 incidences of cancer. She's done hemodialysis, and she lives in southern Florida with her husband and her dogs. And Julie, why don't you share a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. I have a lot in common with the three of you, different things you've said. Like Shane, I started having problems at 19. I had a lot of arthritis. Eventually, I was diagnosed at 20 with lupus, and right then they did do a biopsy, telling me that it was already affecting my kidneys. So we spent about 9 years trying to save my kidney function. My kidneys did fail. I did PD very briefly, and then my creatinine just dropped. So Medicare would not pay for the training. So I had the catheter for a couple months, and then we removed it, of course, infection risk. Um, a couple months later, my kidneys eventually did fail. I did in-center hemo at that point. I did that for a year. And I was transplanted like Cher in 99, December of 99. Fast forward, I'm on year 16 of my transplant, and I feel a lump on the top of my head. I was diagnosed with metastatic, well, actually it was melanoma, and I did some surgeries. I did radiation. Transplant was still fine. So now we're at year 17, and they said, we think you need systemic treatment. And there's a new immunotherapy that had just come out. So was FDA approved in 2014. This is now 2017 or 2016, 17. And they said, we'd like you to do it. But I did some research on it, and it said if you're on transplant medication, right, you can't be on it because we're suppressing our systems, but the immunotherapy is now going to boost our systems, so it's a wash. So they strongly urged me to let the transplant fail. So 17 years, working very well, no problems. I took 2 weeks and I said, okay. I did get a second opinion at Hopkins, and he also strongly suggested I get off the medication, let it fail. So I started this new immunotherapy. 3 months later, back on dialysis. I mean, that proves how well these drugs are, because within 3 weeks, I had every symptom of kidney failure, nausea, vomiting, uh, anemia, everything. So I did home hemo. Next stage, probably not the best idea doing cancer treatment at the same time. So I had other surgeries, the immunotherapy. It got to be a little bit too much. So I did switch to in-center. Now I am 5 years cancer-free from the melanoma. So my home nurse, my home hemo nurse, urged me to start the transplant workup again. So first center turned me down immediately, way too risky. Second center turned me down as well. Went to the big center, the third center, and they just kind of kept testing me. Wasn't am I accepted or not? Just testing, testing. It was a full year of testing. So I finished all the testing, figuring, great. Finally on the list, I get a phone call, and she says, well, they think 85% chance you have kidney cancer. Excuse me? So in order to get on the list, I had to get both kidneys removed. And then 10 weeks later, I got my second transplant. And that was August will be 3 years. So quite a long road.
Quite a
But
long
still,
road.
yeah, but still here.
Now, the kidney cancer you had was on your native kidneys, right? The ones you were.
Correct. Ironically, not even working, right? 25 years, they weren't even working. So they had suspected it was in the right kidney, and in fact it was. It was clear cell renal carcinoma, and the left had precancer. Through all my cancer scans, I knew that I did have cysts, but they always said that they were fine, not polycystic, just cysts. Um, but yeah, so really thank God they were removed. So
So you mentioned that you and I both got a transplant around the same time, and I know the information that was available on the internet way back then.
right,
It's a little scarce. That was like whenever most people
very little.
using dial-up, right? And
Right.
but it was challenging to learn everything about kidney disease. Educating myself, finding a support group was,
Mhm.
I mean, non-existent. There weren't
Correct.
online support groups available.
Right. Right.
But how did you pace yourself and how did you educate yourself? I mean, it's hard enough learning about kidney disease. It is a
Right.
quite complex body system. But
Right.
how did you tackle the cancer on top of it?
Well, early on, no internet, 1988, nothing. There was one book my dad sent away for lupus that said basically it was terminal. Like that's all I knew. And, of course, being educated is great, but I think at that young age, it was probably good. I knew nothing, quite frankly. I just wanted to finish college, just wanted to be a normal, 20 something. Um, as time went on, Lori Hartwell, the first person I ever met, ever, a younger person with kidney disease. And she introduced me to RSN. And I also, at the time, I'd gotten some literature from National Kidney Foundation. And ironically, there was a book in there, like a renal directory. And I ended up going to another third group, an AAKP meeting, and Lori was sitting next to me. And then I realized weeks later that was her renal directory. So it was like a whole weird full circle. But so doing some stuff with RSN, AKP, locally here. We had our own organization, Kidney Association of South Florida. So, as years went on, obviously there was more and more information. Same with the cancer. I was sort of on autopilot at that point. It was just, kidney treatment and cancer treatment in the morning, and then I'd go home and do next stage at night, and it was just like one foot in front of the other. Um, you know, yeah, it was difficult.
How do you pace yourself?
Well, I did learn. I am a little like Kristen, a little OCD, very organized. So all those years on dialysis, I was always looking up recipes that I couldn't eat, right? And I said, when I get that transplant, I'm going to make all these recipes. Um, but I did start cooking a lot on dialysis, and I would cook, and I still do this to this day, Sundays and Tuesdays, all the meals for the week. So that was a kind of pacing. There was no way I was going to come home and then cook. Um, what else? Just really being very organized with resting, right? Rest is like a medication, right? You have to rest. It's not being lazy. If you have to rest, you rest. If I have like a trip coming up or
That's
a very,
great advice.
you
That's
know,
wonderful advice. If everybody didn't hear that, you really need to hear that. Resting is not being lazy.
right, right.
Sorry to interrupt you, but
No, no, it's fine.
that was
It's fine.
really, really important that
Um,
people hear that.
Living in Florida, you have a lot of family likes to come right in January when
Right.
it's nice and not as cold. And like that, I'm having relatives coming. Whether I'm cooking or cleaning, sort of pacing myself so that a few days before they come, I'm going to rest a little bit because every single time I overdo it, 100% I'm going to pay for it. With lupus,
Yeah,
I've got Sjogren's, I've got some other autoimmune stuff. So you absolutely have to pace yourself or it's really not going to work out well for
right.
yourself.
No, I
You know,
totally agree. My illness is autoimmune as well, and I have to stop myself from overextending. I really do.
right. Yep.
And sometimes I just have to say, just shut things down.
Right.
So,
Right.
what are the biggest obstacles that you've come across?
Um, I think just navigating healthcare itself.
Hmm.
Um, Especially during the cancer. I mean, it's just appointments full time. Is it lab work? Is it some treatment or medication that's being denied? And then you're fighting um, healthcare, writing letters, just all of the appointments. It's a lot. It's a lot to navigate. Financially,
Mm.
in 2017. I got a letter that all of a sudden I had to pay a 20% coinsurance for every dialysis treatment.
Oh
Mind
my,
you, I went 4 days a week. I had asked to go an extra day. Um, so, it's very expensive. Body image, right? Body image in anyone really taking steroids or other medications, whether for myself, whether you're super thin on dialysis, very little appetite, nauseous, for a brief moment, I was not on prednisone, so my face got nice and thin. But then, wow, I'm old and now I have wrinkles. Then, transplanted. Now, unfortunately, I'm on three different steroids I have some other issues. So I have two different steroids for that, as well as prednisone. So it's, constantly changing your body image. So that's something, I guess, to get comfortable with, right? Getting comfortable with discomfort, not in a negative way, but it's always going to change. It's any um, chronic illness or for anybody that has, whether it's an addiction, whatever it is you have, it's kind of rolling with it and just sort of accepting. Which also took me like 20 years, quite frankly, whether you're really going through a grieving process things I can no longer do. I don't have the strength for this. I can't open this jar, whatever it is. Um, it's just finally coming to acceptance, which is not easy, but it took me, as I said, literally like 2 decades to be okay with this and not like comparing yourself to others who are running marathons and like my brother running, doing triathlons. And, it's like, wow, I got out of bed today and did some laundry. So you have to be kind to yourself, right? This is not easy. And we're making it, we're doing it, we're making it work. So, give yourself a break.
I think that what you said about being comfortable with being uncomfortable also is worthy of repeating. I want to be sure that people hear that because I experience chronic pain. I know I'm not the only one here on this screen that experiences chronic pain, and it can get you down. And like you said, people need to know to give themselves a break, to
Right.
rest whenever they need to. Those things are important, and not to feel guilty about it. You can't spend all your time in bed, or
Sure.
I think it's actually worse. But
Right, right.
just giving yourself a break sometimes. I think that is definitely worth repeating. And so, what are your biggest coping mechanisms? What are things that keep you going?
Like Shane, music. I'm not a metalhead, but music. Um, Dancing, hey, dancing, right? Like no one's looking. Put on some great music, dancing, humor, a lot of funny videos that just have me like rolling, just, stupid things people come up with that it's like, God, that felt good to laugh, for 20 minutes. Um, what else? Hobbies. As I said, I'm really getting into cooking, friends, family, faith as well with Kristen and Tracy. My faith is very strong. I probably never prayed so much as the last the last 10 years.
I
Um,
bet.
lot of prayers. What else? So I just say one more day, everything's one more day. When so many times I get in the car after dialysis, I cannot do this one more day. Like in tears, I can't do it, I can't do it. And tomorrow, as corny as it sort of sounds, tomorrow is a new day, right?
Right.
Even the littlest nice thing that might happen the next day. My niece sent me a postcard, or my goddaughter texts me some funny video or something. So the little glimmers of something happy, something positive. So I would just tell myself one more day, you've got to get on those lists, one more day, one more day, one more day, you're closer to maybe a transplant. And I just kept repeating that in my head, one more day.
Right. And one more day is you shared with me about what your single message would be is remember there's one more day.
Right,
And
right,
I feel the same with that in that I remind myself that nothing lasts forever. If I'm upset, if I'm in
right.
pain, that tomorrow things will change.
I have a poster on my wall I framed. I know a lot of people like this phrase, but during home hemo, this too shall pass, which I know a lot of people like that, but I just have that right next to my nightstand.
Mhm.
And it's true, bad things come and go, but you will have times where things are better and
That's
appreciate
true.
those good times.
And
Like they
hope
say,
is eternal.
yep, yep. They say you have a
It's,
second chance. And really at this point, my second chance was my first transplant. My third chance was surviving melanoma. My fourth chance was surviving kidney cancer. My fifth chance is a second transplant. So I really should not be complaining about one thing because I'm like living proof of miracles, truly. I really shouldn't be here, especially with the melanoma, that it was moving very fast. And it's just, a miracle, really, that I'm still here.
right.
It
Absolutely.
really
I
is.
agree. And we are glad to see you here. As a matter of fact, I'd like to thank you again for coming today. Shane, Tracy, Kristen, you all, thank you so much for showing your vulnerable side about things that are, your challenges, as well as things that help you get those successes.
Mhm.
Thank you for setting aside time this afternoon to help other patients, as you all always do.